Alright, so a quick overview and comparison between the two units. Obviously, the DD500 is very influenced by the Strymon. This was kind of like a game changer pedal. They both have stereo ins and outs, as well as MIDI in and out on the back. Although very impressively, the Boss uses far less current than the Strymon, which is really handy. I was able to run the three 500 series Boss pedals off one T-Rex fuel tank, where I was only able to run the Timeline off the same thing. The Timeline does have a choice between a stereo output or a feedback loop, so you could put like, you know, any other pedal into the delay repeats only, which I think is pretty cool. And the Timeline also has a couple of extra controls on the front panel, namely filter, grit, and then speed and depth for the modulation, whereas the Boss goes with the bigger LCD screen, which lets you kind of dive into the menu if you want to tweak any of those advanced parameters. So the Strymon is probably more a plug and play kind of thing than the Boss, although looking at them, they're so similar in terms of specs. The Boss has a slightly higher rated set of AD converters and chip. I think it's running like 32-bit or something like that. But other than that, they both sound really good. Let's just hear the sounds on a couple of the main delay modes. Alright, I'm playing my Strat with Sir ML pickups. I'm going to use the neck and the middle position because it is my absolute favorite. Here's a clean sound. Alright, let's start with the Timeline delay. This is with the feedback at 0 and the filter and grit all the way down with no modulation on the digital mode. And same thing with the Boss now. What I'm going to do is turn the feedback up to about 50% on each of these units. Let's have a listen to how that sounds. So you can hear that the delay repeats on the Strymon are a little less pronounced overall. What I'm going to do is turn the filter up to halfway on the Strymon, and I'm going to back the tone off on the Boss because that sort of achieves the same thing there. I'll add a little bit of grit on the Strymon and I will turn the modulation depth up to 50. Same deal with the Boss. Let's have a listen to that starting with the Strymon. You can hear there that the stock modulation character on each different delay mode. It's the standard delay mode, which is digital on the Boss, as I said before, and the digital mode on the Strymon. The actual modulation has a really different character, and the taper of the filter and grit controls really add a sort of, I want to say, like musicality to them. They just sound like they sit a little bit better in with the overall guitar. Having said that though, the Boss gives you like a more accurate representation of your overall tone, and we can actually get into the advanced menu on the Boss and go down and apply a little bit of high pass to that. So not just tone, but we'll actually play around with the high damping. Let's say take that from 12.5 to like 3.5, and we'll turn that up to like, yeah, let's say -6. This is a really cool sound. So that is the digital setting. I've got a preset on each of these now for the analog setting. Let's start with the Boss, 300 milliseconds of delay here. And same thing with the timeline. So again, pretty close. However, you could hear that as I sort of tweaked each one back and forth, it sounded like they were getting closer and closer to one another. I think the Boss overall has definitely more of what we consider like an analog style flavor. Like it sounds a little bit more like a DM2 straight out of the box, but using the filter and the grit on the Strymon gets you there. So that is the analog mode. On each of them, let's go. I think the next most desirable mode on both of these pedals is the standard tape delay. So let's have a listen to the tape delays, starting with the Boss. It is set on the Roland Space Echo mode at the moment. Okay, if we do some tweaking and dial in a bit of wow and flutter on the Boss, and then crank the filter and the grit on the Strymon, we get this. This is the Boss.
Strymon.
And for me, there's a huge difference there. The Strymon sounds so much dirtier. I've got the Boss set on the Echoplex mode, but it doesn't kind of get close to that sort of grittiness and warbliness that the Strymon's got going on. The last mode that I want to compare is the Ice mode with the Shimmer mode. So Ice mode on the timeline, Ice mode in the timeline, and Shimmer on the Boss DD500. Let's have a listen to those. So this is Ice on the timeline. and this is Shimmer on the DD500. So they're really different. To me, the ice mode on the Strymon is quite distinct. It's got elements of the Eventide H3000 or H8000 or the Fractal Axe Effects kind of crystals mode, whereas the Shimmer on the Boss is a lot more straight ahead. It's just a straight octave up reverb. So they're a little bit harder to compare. Personally, I like the sound of the Strymon a bit more on that mode. I also like the Strymon more on the tape delay mode. I thought that had a lot more character, but at the same time, we could probably spend a bit more time tweaking the Boss in depth to get a little bit more of that happening. Having said that, it's all there on the front panel on the Strymon. Personally, I like the analog mode on the Boss a little bit more. I thought that really nailed a DM2 style thing with absolutely no fuss. And the digital mode sounded great on both of them. There's obviously a whole bunch of distinct other modes on each pedal that sounds really, really great and is worth investigating before you make a decision. But they're the sort of four main basic delays I think everybody who gets one of these wants to get out of it. So make of it what you will. If you enjoyed the comparison, please consider subscribing and please consider leaving a comment and letting me know what you think and how you would use each of these delays in your rig.